Okay. All right, say something, Kevin. Press the speaker.
Hey guys, I don't see a lot of orange in your classroom, which is too bad, so I'm representing my school. There you go. There we go.
All right, give me 1 sec, Kev. We're having some problem with the speaker. All right, somebody tell me what I'm doing wrong here with the speaker. It's over here, right? It says full. All right, now say something, Kevin.
Hey, this is an Oregon State graduate. Wishing you guys a good afternoon for you. That working?
Not yet. Hang on. You mean this right here? This right here on the dash? The computer's on full.
What's the laptop on that?
Huh?
On the one on the swivel. Yeah, that one. Is that one?
Yeah. Yeah, this one's all the way up. Hang on 1 sec, Kev. We got one little technical difficulty. So it's coming out here, but I want it to come out here. Yeah, that's you. How do we get it? It should be coming straight out of here, right? All right. Speaker says full. Okay, that works. All right. We don't have a microphone. Okay. All right. Say one more thing, Kev.
Good afternoon, Nittany Lions. How are you guys?
All right. I guess we're kind of screwed here. I can't figure out how to make the volume come out of here. Not sure why it's not doing that. But you guys can all hear them, right? So we'll just be a little quiet.
Yeah.
Speaker view. Okay. All right, say something, Kevin.
Nittany Lions, how are you guys?
Okay, very good. You're good.
Good as we're gonna get.
Can you hear us?
Sure can. You guys should say something to me.
Hello.
Loud and clear. So I'll turn my camera around. I got to support my team a little bit here. Go Beavs. But in general, I'm going to turn my camera around in a minute, show you guys a small, tiny fraction of agricultural-based plastic. You can literally get at this one site 100 times this amount per day. Let me walk down my project trailer here. Give you guys a little sample. So that is a tiny fraction of just agricultural plastic coming out of the farms in Marion County, Oregon. So it's a small farming community, but there's a lot of plastic. Ag actually takes a lot of plastic and uses it in the industry, and then they can only use it one time and throw it away because they worry about biological vectors, impacting the next year's crop with this year's, bacteria or whatever. So single-use plastics in the ag industry anyway are actually very good. Sort of like the medical industry. You don't want somebody else's recycled contact solution water or anything like that. Let me walk through my my building 4 here, show you another piece of equipment. That small device actually runs a 10-pound load of plastic. It simulates the same conditions in my 1,000-pound per load machine. This is what we did our catalytic testing on to see if we could make diesel fuel and gasoline instead of crude oil in our process. So far at the 10-pound experimental level, we've been successful. The scale risk is now scaling up to 1,000 pounds. Let's walk down the rest of the building. So this is my 1,000-pound per load machine. Let me show you what happens here. We load plastic into a cartridge. That device right there is sticking out of the silvery crock pot. That silver system, all that does is act like a crock pot and heat the air around the cartridge. The cartridge then takes that heat, imparts it to the plastic. We have gases then travel down that stainless steel pipe that makes a right angle, goes into a gas transfer line, which you can see the start of. And if I pan all the way up, it looks like a cannon. That's what we call it. And at that point, we just simply condense the vapor, try to cut it into two fractions, a diesel and a gasoline. And from there, blend it in with already finished diesel and finished gasoline to make our product. So that's the process. You can see some equipment behind me here. It's rather large scale, but in general, what's happening is we bought at auction several of the full-scale assets that Waste Management sold when they decided to turn off their project. Those assets were purchased from my original company, Agilix, in 2011. They were commissioned in 2012, and about 2013, they turned off the project for a variety of reasons. In 2014 or 15, I bought them in auction, and here they sit until we turn them on again and make them better, faster, and cheaper. Walk inside, give you a little bit more of a sense of stuff here. Agricultural industry in Washington, by taking the waste plastic, they can take up anymore because you just
Hey, Kevin, we're losing some of your audio. Maybe you pause for a sec here.
No worries.
All right, go for it.
So Agriplast recycles agricultural waste plastic. They support the farmers. And what happens is they can take what they receive from the farmers and upvalue it. They used to take a lot more because they could export that to China with China's National Sword Program occurring, I think, 2 years ago now, roughly. You can no longer export waste plastic to China. So what happens is a lot of that piles up, and people are starting to get very concerned about just the sheer volume, not the mass so much, but the volume of plastic and where's it going to go. So that's where our technology fits in, and we'll talk about that in a minute when I get inside the trailer. So Brad, I'm going to turn this off and get in the trailer and hook up again.
Okay, excellent. And I'm going to see if I can figure out something on the sound. Okay. All right. So we did take a quick pause here while he turns off his phone and figure out why the hell this thing isn't working. So clearly the sound works, right? So why wasn't he able to talk? Huh?
Was it muted?
No, I don't have anything muted. Nothing's muted. It's all not muted. What happens if I plug this in here? All right, so when he logs on, he might be super loud. Nice try. All right. Well, it's pretty cool if you think about it. I mean, what?
Fabulous. Everybody hear me?
Now we can actually hear you from the actual meeting. This is going to actually work now. Okay, great.
It's probably the phone app. We can always blame the app, right, guys?
Exactly.
So you guys had a number of questions that I was able to answer and provide back to Brad. I'm not sure if he's shared those written responses with you guys, but we can certainly go over those original questions or dive in a little deeper on anything you guys want to cover. How do you want to proceed?
Yeah, go ahead and brief us on the questions. Most of us have been briefed on the actual questions, but not your answers. So we thought we'd wait for spontaneity there.
Let me see if I can, hang on for a second. I'm going to try and do something clever. Penn State. Fabulous.
Are you trying to share your screen?
Yeah, I'm trying to window it and tile it so that I can read my answers and still look at you guys.
Okay.
Need to be a little professional here, right? So my name is Kevin DeWitt. I started Agilix in 2004. At the time, it was called Plastofuel, P-L-A-S, the number 2, F-U-E-L. That's about as clever as a chemist can do when it comes to naming a company. That is to say, not very clever. Agilix came about. Go ahead, Brad.
No, I was just laughing. Sorry.
Agilix came about when we all decided that Plastofuel was a little bit cumbersome. We hated spelling the name every time we told somebody our email address. And so we changed it to Agilix. And of course, that's a made up name. So we still had to spell it for everybody every time we gave them our email address. But there you go. The startup team was my wife and myself. She is a CFO / controller. So she understood the money side of a business very, very well. Not so much the startup world, but she dug in and solved that type of, that challenge. And it is a challenge when you start a business to do all the administrative stuff correctly. So she did that. Our first hire was really a sweat equity hire. I knew I was never going to be the CEO of the company. It's not my thing. And so I went out and found that guy. That was Chris Ullum. And best find and one of my best friends ever. I mean, he's just a great guy. Our first real guy that we hired, that we paid, was a guy named Nick Smith, who was our plant operator. He made things actually work. Something broke, and I write in my my responses, more often than not, things caught on fire, they didn't break. That's just the nature of our business. But when they caught on fire or they broke, Nick either put it out or fixed it. So he was a great first hire as well. In general, when I started the business, one of the things I did sort of innately understand was that you have to, if you're going to bring people in, they have to at least share the sort of the ethos or the genre of entrepreneurship, right, in startup world. You got to wear a lot of hats. You got to want to wear a lot of hats. Some of them fun, some of them not fun. But there's a certain, group of people that appeals to, and a lot of people it does not appeal to. They want to show up 9 to 5. They want to do the job they've been tasked to do. They do it well. They like it, and they go home. And that's their world. And they love it, and that's fine. But if you're in a startup, you got to do a lot of stuff, and it's a grind at the time. At the time it still is. A lot of fun, but somewhat manic in that regard. It's a lot of ups, a lot of downs. So opportunity recognition, how I came up with this idea. I've been involved in this sort of plastic conversion to something technology since 2000. Had 4 years of experience with other people's money and other people's thinking before I did it myself. Started the company in 2004. It still took us 2 years to find funding. Back in the day, it was not something people really resonated with. The whole idea of sustainability, clean technology, that kind of thing, didn't really resonate. It's a pretty easy marketplace because there's 50 billion pounds a year of plastic just in this country that enters the landfills. That's after you recycle the now 9%, I think. At the time it was about 6 to 7%. So we're getting better. But our thesis was we could take something out of the landfill guys hate, We could turn it into an energy product, which everybody needs. And if we do that in a local way, we can benefit in a very local sense, the local environment, the local job economy, and local energy needs. So that was sort of our overarching thesis. What we do sort of technically is we sell a technology that converts a problem, waste plastic, into a resource, crude oil or hydrocarbon. That's our sort of product or service. Who is our customer? This is probably super important for you guys to nail down when you're starting your own things. Understand who your customer is, and more importantly, who it probably isn't. We did not do a good job of identifying customers. So for us, anybody who seemed like they had touch with or charge over a waste material flow, which is what the waste industry calls, waste that moves from A to B. That's material flow. Anybody who touched that, we thought was a good customer or a good potential client. Turns out that's not really true. Waste is different from source separated waste plastic. Those are very different things. That lesson was taught very, very well to us when we had Waste Management, the company, as both an investor and as a client. It turns out that they're not a very good collector of waste plastic. They're a really good collector of garbage, and they do a really good job of burying that garbage. But they do a poor to average at best job of collecting plastic and then separating it from all the contamination that's in it. We don't need it perfectly clean, but they did not do a good job. Our other two clients at Agilix were project developers. Those are not good clients. They think because they're smart that they can act as smart middlemen and go get plastic and then put it through a technology and then sell the product, and they just run it in the middle. If getting waste plastic source separated from all the other organic waste and the toilets and anything else that's in the waste stream that's not plastic, that's a hard thing to do, and they did not do it well. So consequently, all three projects suffered because what we were being fed was garbage. And you guys have all heard the expression garbage in, garbage out. For us, it was garbage in and some product out, but not as much as we thought. So that was a big problem. The other aspect for us was our customers had to be somewhat risk tolerant, because this is a $15 to $20 million enterprise, and that's not something anybody's going to write a check for, just carte blanche. So that was also something that people had to get their hands around. Was, hey, this is going to be a $15 million thing. Value prop, I think we've sort of covered that. Anytime we can redirect a waste stream into something more useful, especially if we can add value and to that end product, then we're doing a good job. Distribution, another key in our industry. There are some players that say we're going to build a giant machine and we're going to take 300 tons a day of waste plastics to feed it. It's really hard to get that much plastic. That's probably 20 to 30 semis every day arriving at your site, trying to dump their loads and then go back and get another for the next day. That's a very, very difficult thing to do with plastic. It's probably not so hard to do with bricks or anything else that's super dense, but plastic, it's just really tough. Our model was distributed, meaning you put the technology right where the plastic is, already being aggregated at some point. Agriplast is a great example of plastic that's already being collected at a particular single site. So Agriplast is actually a very good client, and will be once we get our prototype running. We'll put our first 10 ton per day system here because we already know how to acquire the feedstock, and it's already coming here. And the farmers are going to be very happy to drop off their waste plastic and receive a diesel fuel for their farms back in return. That's what everybody now knows as a circular economy story. So you've got, a great story to tell people. But the model is pretty simple. Put the technology where the plastic is, make it small scale so that you don't have to have even 10 tons a day. My business model, at least at the project pro forma sense, says that we can be profitable at 5 tons a day. And that's actually a pretty small community, maybe 10 or 15,000 people will generate that much plastic. So that's a small is good. Small and put it where the problem is really good. Small and put it where the problem is and create local jobs and boost your local economy. That's good, right? So there you go. Let's see, interesting story. Well, we were 3 months away from going public in the winter of 2011, and that was crazy. We had, in our smaller than this room, small little conference room in Tigard, Oregon, in our little building, every day for 5 days, we had one of the top 5 Wall Street banking firms in to pitch us on why they wanted to take us public. I think we started with Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Chase, Barclays, and Piper Jaffray. All came in one at a time every day, and all of them begging us to let them be the lead investment bank on our public offering. Mind you, this is 2011. We've sold 3 systems, but we haven't delivered anything yet. Our engineers are frantically working on trying to actually engineer a system as big as the one people ordered. We had a 10-ton per day system in Tigard operational. It was fine. Everybody ordered systems at 40 tons a day, so 4 times bigger than we ever had, and 3 clients all at once. So that was a huge challenge. We hired up to about 60 people at that point. 12, I think, or 13 were engineers. And we were going crazy trying to engineer this thing just ahead of manufacturing, just ahead of delivery, just ahead of, of course, commissioning. So it was crazy. All these banks are begging us to be their investment bank. And I'm a chemist from Portland, Oregon. I worked in the lab all my life. I've done a bunch of stuff. My CEO, Chris, he's worked at Sun Microsystems. He understands sort of big business a little bit better, but this is his first startup. So at about day 3, we're just shaking our heads with these banks. Goldman Sachs saying, guys, we want to be a part of the Agilix story. What can we do? And we're just looking at each other going, this is surreal. We haven't even done anything yet. And the banks and our investors are all pushing for this IPO. And we're just like, we don't get it. There's a disconnect here. And what that disconnect, my conclusion was, Wall Street loves to sort of market things ahead of where they really are. They hope that the public will generally buy off on that and invest. But by the time they do, Wall Street's already made its money, so it's okay. It can fail or not. It doesn't really matter. They've made their money. And that's a little bit cynical, but it's pretty true as well, at least in our experience. So that was a weird time to be a founder and say, I haven't really done anything yet, and yet I've got Wall Street begging me to make them a lot of money and hopefully to make myself some money. So there you go. I'm going to stop with my soliloquy, and we've got a couple more looking forward and some thoughts, but I will stop and let you guys fire away with some things you really want to hear about.
Okay, you guys have any questions? Let's see. There's Joey over there with the hand up. Go ahead, Joey.
I was just curious, you were talking about how big you were when you started in 2011. How big are you now? How many people do you employ now? And what's your geographic span too?
So Brad, can you repeat that?
How big are the employees now, and what's their geographic reach?
Yeah, he's wants to know what your geographic reach is and your size and employees now.
So great question. So geographic reach is really worldwide. One of the reasons I made the technology small scale is that I can actually address marketplaces like Zimbabwe, Indonesia, El Salvador, things like that, right? So 5 tons a day and still being profitable is a good spot to be in because I don't need all the infrastructure that we have in this country. We can literally go to developing nations and create jobs as opposed to mechanized sorting and collection mechanisms, and create jobs by having people just simply collect plastic and drop it off and get paid for it. Because again, the economies of over in developing nations are so drastically different than this. So our scale's gone down. One machine will do 2.5 tons a day. It's not really profitable or sustainable at that point unless the government's subsidizing it somehow. 2 machines is actually break even, but that's okay. And 3 or 4 or 10 or 20, and I'm not going to ever do that again, but 3 or 4 up to 8 is actually quite good. So that's geographic reach. Team now is 2 guys full-time, myself and my former plant manager from Agilix, whom I love, is a great guy. He actually commissioned all 3 of the projects, so he knows a lot about the hardware. I've got an extended team of former Agilix employees that are no longer with Agilix that act as advisors. They do stuff for me on occasion. It's sweat equity. They have some stock options in the company, but they're not full-time, nor do they get paid, which is actually another very good thing to do when you're starting something up. Try to not pay anybody anything, even yourself, and try to give them some equity or some upside so that when you are a gazillionaire, they can become billionaires or whatever, right? So that's sort of the realm, the currency of the realm. What was the third part of that question, Brad? I missed it.
No, I think that was pretty much it. I guess other than in general, your sales volume annual.
So no sales volume yet. These are still multi-million-dollar purchases. I've got 3 to 4 serious people that are looking at the equipment that we have. One of the advantages I had when I got all of this former waste management project, when I acquired all those assets, was I was able to acquire assets, and I knew costs, $200,000 for, around $3,000. So my cost of the capital equipment has gone way down. So I can actually redeploy these assets once they've been retrofitted into new projects. Now they're used assets, but they're in projects with, 1/4 to 1/5 of the original capital cost. That makes for a very good economic model. So my first 3 projects, which I have assets for, will go into areas where people maybe are a little bit capital constrained, and yet they really want to do this. And by being able to leverage down what we got at auction, we'll be able to satisfy them, get a project going, make it profitable, and then build our next generation of equipment.
Awesome. That was awesome. What other questions? Okay, we have Alex over here with a question.
So do you still do anything on the chemistry or engineering side, or are you just on the one side?
Did you get that? He wanted to know, do you still do chemical stuff or mostly is it just running the business?
So I do some of the chemistry. I mean, I do all the chemistry because I'm a chemist and a physicist. But that part is pretty much done at the theoretical and bench level. I now rely upon engineers, a couple of which I have a process chemical engineer that's, again, an advisor, works for equity. And it's really those guys that can take what a scientist can do at the lab level or the bench level and translate it into a commercial or light industrial level. So I'm working with him. But I wear, again, a lot of hats. I'm trying to fundraise. I'm trying to manage the couple of part-time people that I do have, which is pretty easy since there's a couple of them. I'm working on the business development, client project sales side of things, as well as just the science. So and of course managing engineering and getting people. It's funny when you manage anybody, any group of people, their timeline is not your timeline. So if you could think and want something done in a week, multiply that by 3 or 4 to get an accurate sense for how long it's really going to be. And if that doesn't fit with your schedule, you've got to find another way. Do it yourself or find somebody faster. And do that quickly and do it often until you get your needs met. Because you need to be selfish. Your needs need to be met on your timeline or it's not going to go your way. And that's, it's never going to be perfect. My expectations of my timelines are tempered by the reality I've seen over the last, 15 years.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Any other questions? We have another question? Oh, okay. All right, Alex has another question. Okay, Alex, go ahead.
Did you ever face like? Did you ever almost go bankrupt? Was there any point where you were worried about closing?
So his question was there any time at which you were concerned about going bankrupt and having to call it a day?
Personally, no. I did, because I have a marvelous wife who, again, was a CFO and controller. Between the two of us, for a while, I was, an unpaid founder, and she supported us. Then for a while, I was a pretty highly paid founder, and we socked all that money away because she still worked. And now I'm back to the last couple of years being an unpaid founder, and we've gone through the money we socked away, in small doses. So personally, I'm okay. I'm doing what entrepreneurs typically do. To your point, though, which is interesting about bankruptcy, so Agilix still exists. I was there for the first $100 or so million that was raised by the company, which in Oregon is unheard of. I think one other company has raised the kind of capital we raised. It's crazy because it's Oregon. They've since subsequently raised about another 50 to 65 million, I think, from what my sources sort of tell me. That's a lot of capital. Here's what happens. When I started the company, we were worth nothing. My first round of financing, we told our original investors we're worth 1.2 million. And that number was not arbitrary. It was because they wanted to invest $300,000. And if you put $300,000 into 1.2 million, it's 300,000 divided by 1.2 plus 0.3, or a total of 1.5. That's the same as 1/5 or 20% stake. And that's how investors look at this. They look at stakes and stake size. And so they wanted a 20% stake. We figured out the value of the company that would get them that, and off we went. Our fourth round of money, our Series D institutional round, we raised $20 million on a $220 million pre-money value. So that gave a company the post-money value of $240 million. That's $250 million. This is in 2011, the end of 2011, December. After that, what we saw was our cost overruns on the 3 projects we had sold stupidly for a set price came in at almost 100% over budget, but 80% over budget, which is insane. That's a huge, huge miss. So we spent most of the capital we raised in 2011, $53 million, 47, on those cost overruns, which was crazy. So by the time we raised our Series D, we've got the value of the company up. When that runs out, because this technology is not, it's too expensive, we have to raise more money. Well, guess what? The company, investors are now going to look at the company and say, you're not worth $240 million. Sorry. We're not going to put it in. We've seen what's going on here. So our board, of which I was a member but not in control of anymore, our board said, we're going to recapitalize the company and take that $240 million value and cram it down to $1 million. So that's a 240x cram down. That's the term of art. That means that everybody's share in the company went down 240x, or 240 times. My stake of, $1.5 million, 7 shares just got cut down by 240 times. That hurt everybody. It flushed most of our angel investors, individuals. It flushed our Series A folks for the most part. So their stock was virtually worthless. And in general, they followed that up with a subsequent cram down of another 100x. So what's 240 times 100? That's 24,000. So my shares and my stake in the company went down by 24,000 times in the span of about a year and a half. That's sometimes what it takes to raise more money when you have a beast that you need to feed with capital, to the tune of $500,000 to $750,000 a month. That's the cost of doing business. In that sense, to the questioner's original question, in that sense, it was very close to sort of folding up and shuttering the business. They didn't. They leaned it down. We took 60 people, and they're now down to about 10 or 11 people, which is tough, but that's what you do. And they spend now, I think their investors invest on a monthly basis. They no longer capitalize them on a yearly basis. Again, something where they spoon feed them capital. That stuff is really hard to take if you're an original founder. And it was for me. I still spent 2 years after those things happened trying to get the company to work. But they were, their thoughts and my thoughts were diverging. And so I in essence, left. And now right now what I'm doing is basically Agilix 2.0. It's the second version of what I really originally wanted to do. So not bankrupt yet. When you drive around the city of Kelso, Washington, look it up on your map, tiny little city. When you drive around it on a fuel that you made out of waste plastic that was sitting in a warehouse successfully twice around the city, like 15-mile perimeter. At least my friend and I, who made the fuel, when we poured it into the truck and we did it, we said, oh my God, this is earth-changing, literally global world-changing stuff. We need to get this done and successful and get it out there. So bankrupt or not, I'm committed. It's been 20 years, and we'll see what happens, but I like my chances.
Wow. Okay. Well, that was fantastic, Kevin. Listen, everybody clap for this man, because we're just about out of time. Very well. All right. And so, Kevin, we'll sign off now, and I'll catch up with you later on in the day here.
Fabulous.
Shoot you an email. But
guys, best of luck. Grind away. Never say die. Never give up.
Awesome. That was awesome, Kevin. Thank you so very, very, very much. All
Thanks,
right.
guys. Great audience.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.